Let us be clear, as a nation, that we will not tolerate any acts of criminality. We will not tolerate any acts of vandalism. Those who are involved in acts of violence will be arrested and prosecuted.
Well, covering the story for us today is our Chief Foreign Editor, Rob Parsons. He's on the line now. Rob, we have seen some images then of violence this morning as well as over the weekend. So clearly some unrest, but perhaps not as much as had been feared.
Yeah, I think that's about right. There was a fear that there would be violence, not least when Edward Zuma, the son of Jacob Zuma, said last week that if his father were to be arrested, there would be blood on the floor, as he put it. And given that South Africa is not a stranger to violence and bloodshed, there was real concern that things could get out of hand, particularly in KWAZULU-NATAL, which is the province from which Jacob Zuma comes and where he has particularly strong support. And indeed, over the last couple of days or so, it's primarily been in KwaZulu-Natal, also in Johannesburg and Gauteng province, but primarily KwaZulu-Natal, where much of the violence has been. Not all of it, it has to be said, political in form either. There's been a lot of opportunism, criminal elements, looting shops and that sort of thing. Roads have been blocked as well, including the main road between Durban in the east and Johannesburg. But by and large, I think it's fair to say that the violence hasn't been so intense as to cause immense concern in the government. They feel, I think, that they've got this under control at the moment. But you know, today is a key day. If the ruling goes against Jacob Zuma and he has to stay on in prison to serve his 15-month term, there may be a new surge in violence.
As you say, Jacob Zuma's lawyers to speak on his behalf in court this morning. Clearly, this is a huge test for the judicial system, isn't it, in South Africa?
Yeah, I think that this is really what it's about at the moment. The judicial system in South Africa, like the media in many respects, has been a pillar of South African democracy over the 27 years since the end of apartheid. You know, it's really held its own and stood out as for its strengths. If it were to fail at this hurdle, that would be a serious blow to South Africa. And there's no doubt that it's under pressure. We've had the Prime Minister of KwaZulu-Natal, for instance, which again, as I pointed out earlier on, is where Jacob Zuma comes from, saying that he could understand the feelings of the people demonstrating and protesting on the streets. The Secretary General of the African National Congress, the ANC, which has ruled South Africa since the end of apartheid, calling on the judges to drop the charges against Zuma, regardless of their seriousness. Quite clearly, there are two different forces at work here in South Africa, one trying to strengthen the rule of law, and another one which doesn't seem so concerned about the rule of law and is much more interested, it would seem, in protecting its privileges. And that I think is where things are at the moment. There is much more of this down the road, it has to be said as well. In addition to the charge that has led to Jacob Zuma being imprisoned for contempt of court, he also faces charges on corruption in a massive $5 billion arms case, but dating back to the 1990s, racketeering, fraud, tax evasion, money laundering and corruption. You know, these could come with much heavier sentences if they go against him. And that really will be a challenge to stability in South Africa if it happens. Remembering that Jacob Zuma is a former president of South Africa, one of the stalwarts of the fight against apartheid in South Africa, regarded by many for a long time as a national hero, and now he's in prison.
All right, our Foreign Affairs Editor Rob Parsons there. Thank you very much indeed.